I sat in that hospital room, staring at the woman who destroyed my life. 3 years ago, she told everyone I attacked her. My family believed her instantly. My friends turned away. I lost my job, my home, everything. Now she was dying, tubes running from her frail arms, and she asked me to come. She said she needed to tell me something. Part of me wanted to walk out, but another part, the part that still believed truth mattered, made me stay. Let me take you back to where it all started. Before we dive in, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you how one lie can destroy everything, and how truth always finds its way out, even if it takes 3 years. I was 27 years old, living in Portland, Oregon, working as a software developer for a small tech company downtown. Nothing fancy, just a solid job with decent pay and good people around me. The office had that startup vibe with exposed brick walls, standing desks, and a coffee machine that never seemed to work properly. My co-workers were friendly, the kind of folks you could joke with during lunch breaks or grab drinks with after work on Fridays. I had plans back then. Real plans. I was saving for a down payment on a house, thinking maybe in another year I could finally stop renting and have something that was actually mine. My family was everything to me. We were close, the kind of close where Sunday dinners were not optional, they were tradition. Every week, without fail, I would drive over to my parents' place in the suburbs. My dad would fire up the grill, my mom would make her famous potato salad, and my younger sister Sarah, who was 24 at the time, would bring wine and tell us about her latest adventures. Dad always had this proud look when he talked about me telling his friends his son was doing well in the tech world. Mom worried, of course, the way mothers do, always asking if I was eating enough vegetables and getting enough sleep. It was simple. It was good. It was home. Outside of work and family, I had my crew. Marcus and Dylan were my best friends since college, the kind of guys who knew me inside and out. We played basketball every Saturday morning at the community court near the river. We were not great, but we had fun talking trash and laughing until our sides hurt. My life was uncomplicated. I went to work, spent time with people I loved, and never imagined that everything could fall apart so quickly. That is when Stephanie entered the picture. She was 26, a friend of Sarah's from high school. They had been close back in the day, but lost touch when Stephanie moved to California for a relationship. When that relationship ended badly, she came back to Portland looking for a fresh start. Sarah felt terrible for her and invited her over for dinner one night to help take her mind off the breakup. I remember the first time I met Stephanie. She was petite with shoulder-length chestnut hair and a quiet demeanor that made her seem almost fragile. She talked a lot that evening about her ex, about how devastating the split had been, how lost she felt. I felt bad for her. Anyone would. But I was not interested in anything beyond being polite. She was my sister's friend, going through a tough time, nothing more. Over the next few weeks, Stephanie started showing up more often. Sarah explained she was struggling with depression and needed the support of friends. Stephanie came to family dinners, joined our game nights, even tagged along when a group of us went hiking one weekend. I was friendly but careful to maintain boundaries. I had no interest in getting involved with someone in such a vulnerable state, and honestly, I just was not attracted to her in that way. But Stephanie's behavior started shifting. She would find ways to sit next to me during gatherings. She sent me messages on Facebook casual, at first just asking how my day was going. I replied politely, but kept my responses brief. Then, one evening during a group movie night at my parents' house, she reached over and put her hand on my shoulder. It seemed innocent enough, but something about it felt off. I shifted away subtly, hoping she would get the message. I pulled Sarah aside a few days later. We were grabbing coffee before work, and I brought it up gently. "I think Stephanie might have the wrong idea about us," I told her. Sarah laughed it off. "You are overthinking this," she said. "She just needs friends right now. She is going through a rough patch." I wanted to believe that. I decided I would just be more careful about keeping my distance. Then came my mom's birthday party in March. The whole family gathered at my parents' house along with a handful of close friends. Sarah had invited Stephanie, of course. The afternoon was beautiful, everyone was in good spirits, and we spent hours eating, laughing, and celebrating. As the evening wound down, Stephanie had a bit too much wine. I noticed her stumbling slightly as people started to leave. Toward the end of the night, she found me outside on the porch and asked if we could talk privately. That is when she told me she had feelings for me. She said she had been trying to work up the courage to tell me for weeks. She thought maybe we could go out sometime, see where things went. I was as gentle as I could be. "I am flattered," I said, "but I do not feel the same way. I hope we can still be friends." She nodded, said she understood, but there was something in her eyes I could not quite read. Something cold beneath the sadness. I thought that would be the end of it. I figured things might be awkward for a little while, but eventually we would all move on. I went back to my normal routine work during the week, family on Sundays, basketball with the guys on Saturdays. I had no idea that conversation on the porch was not the end of anything. It was just the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. 2 weeks after my mom's birthday, Sarah decided to throw a small get-together at her apartment. It was mid-April, one of those perfect spring evenings when the air smells like fresh rain and blossoms. She invited me, Stephanie, and a few other friends. I hesitated when she called to invite me. Part of me wanted to avoid another encounter with Stephanie, but Sarah insisted. "Come on, it has been a while since we hung out," she said. I gave in. I ended up arriving late because I had to stay overtime at work fixing a bug that was causing issues with one of our client projects. By the time I got to Sarah's place around 8 in the evening, the party was already in full swing. Music played from a speaker in the corner, people were laughing and playing card games on the living room floor, and the smell of pizza filled the air. Stephanie was already there. I could tell she had been drinking since early in the evening. Her cheeks were flushed, her movements loose and unsteady. I tried to blend in, chatting with a couple of Sarah's co-workers I vaguely knew, snacking on chips, and trying to stay on the opposite side of the room from Stephanie. The vibe was relaxed, nothing unusual. People started trickling out around 10. I was getting ready to leave when Sarah came over looking concerned. "Stephanie is really out of it," she said. "Can you help me get her to the guest room?" I hesitated but agreed. Stephanie was swaying on her feet, barely able to stand. I helped Sarah guide her into the living room, not the bedroom. That detail matters. We laid her down on the couch, and Stephanie mumbled something I could not make out. Her eyes were half closed, her words slurred beyond recognition. I grabbed a blanket from the closet, draped it over her, and left. I was out of there by 11 and home 20 minutes later. I remember feeling slightly annoyed as I drove home. I was tired of being put in these awkward situations with Stephanie. I decided that moving forward I would just skip any events where she was going to be present. It was not worth the hassle. I went to bed that night without giving it much more thought. My phone rang at 6:30 the next morning. It was Sarah, and the sound of her voice immediately sent ice through my veins. She was crying, her words coming out in panicked bursts. "Jimmy," she said, "Stephanie said you did something to her last night." I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. What are you talking about?" I asked. She told me Stephanie was claiming I had assaulted her, that I had come into the room where she was sleeping and attacked her while she was too drunk to fight back. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "That is insane," I said. I just helped her to the couch and left immediately. There was a long pause. "But she is really upset," Sarah said. "Why would she lie?" I threw on clothes and drove straight to my parents' house. Sarah had already called them, and when I walked in, the whole family was gathered in the living room. Stephanie was there too, sitting on the couch with red, swollen eyes, her hands trembling in her lap. My mom sat beside her, rubbing her back. My dad stood in the middle of the room with his arms crossed, his face a mask of anger and confusion. I started trying to explain what actually happened. I told them I had only helped Stephanie to the couch, that I left immediately, that nothing happened. But Stephanie interrupted me, her voice shaking. "I was drunk," she said. I could not fight back. I woke up and my clothes were different. She dissolved into sobs. My mom held her tighter. I felt like I was drowning. "Why would I make this up?" Stephanie cried. "This is humiliating for me. Do you think I want people to know this happened?" I kept repeating that it was not true, that she was lying, but every word I said seemed to make things worse. My dad's face grew harder. "If this is true," he said, "you need to take responsibility." My mom looked at me like she did not recognize me. Sarah stood in the corner, silent, her eyes filled with doubt. Stephanie said she did not want to go to the police. She said the whole thing was too traumatic, too painful. But she wanted me to admit what I did and apologize. "I will never admit to something I did not do," I said. The words came out louder than I intended. "So you are calling her a liar?" my dad shot back. "Maybe you drank too much too and do not remember," my mom suggested softly. I stood there in the middle of my own family, completely alone. No one believed me. Not one person. The fallout was swift and brutal. Word spread through our mutual friends within days. Marcus and Dylan called to check in, but even their voices sounded uncertain, like they did not know what to believe. Another friend sent me a text that felt like a punch to the gut. "I always thought you were a good guy. I guess you never really know someone." At work, things got worse. Sarah and Stephanie had mutual friends in the tech community, and somehow the rumor reached someone at my company. My boss called me into his office a week after the accusation. I heard some concerning things he said carefully. "While no charges have been filed, we need to think about the company's culture and reputation." I was put on administrative leave, which is just a polite way of saying they did not want me around while they figured out what to do with me. 2 weeks later, I was fired. They did not say it was because of the accusation, of course. They dressed it up in corporate language about restructuring and fit. But I knew the truth. I had become a liability. I stopped hearing from my family. My calls went unanswered. My texts got no replies. It was like I had been erased from their lives. I could not stay in Portland anymore. Every street corner held a memory, every familiar face felt like a potential judgment. I packed up my apartment and moved to Seattle, 3 hours north, to start over in a city where no one knew my name or my story. Seattle was supposed to be a fresh start, but it felt more like exile. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood I did not know, far from anything familiar. I could not land another full-time job. Every application seemed to hit a wall. I do not know if word had spread or if my gap in employment raised red flags, but no one was calling me back. I started doing freelance coding work, taking whatever projects I could find online. The pay was inconsistent and far less than what I had been making before, but it kept the lights on. The loneliness was the worst part. I had no family, no friends nearby, no one to talk to. I would go days without speaking to another person beyond ordering coffee or groceries. At night, I lay awake, replaying everything in my mind. The party, Stephanie on the couch, my family's faces when they chose to believe her instead of me. The isolation ate away at me slowly, like rust on metal. I went through the motions. I worked, I paid rent, I existed. But I was not really living. Some days I thought about just giving up entirely, packing everything into my car, and driving until I ran out of road. The only thing that kept me going was a stubborn refusal to let the lie win completely. If I disappeared, it would be like admitting guilt. So I stayed. I survived. Barely. Marcus was the only person from my old life who kept in touch. He would call every few weeks just to check in. "I know you, man," he said more than once. "You would never do that." His belief in me was a lifeline, even if it could not change anything. He tried reaching out to Sarah on my behalf, but she never responded. My parents did not want to hear from him either. They had made up their minds. I looked into legal options. I met with a lawyer in Seattle to see if I could sue Stephanie for defamation. He listened to my story, took notes, and then gave me the reality. Without evidence, and since she did not file charges, it is nearly impossible to prove defamation, he said. These cases almost never win, and they cost a fortune. You would be throwing money into a black hole. I left his office feeling more hopeless than when I walked in. 3 years passed like that. 3 years of living in the shadow of a lie I could not escape. I watched people my age getting promotions, getting married, buying homes, building lives. I was stuck in place, frozen in the moment. Everything fell apart. I stopped hoping things would get better. I just focused on getting through each day. Then one afternoon in July, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something made me open it. It was Sarah. "Jimmy, I need to talk to you. It is about Stephanie." My first instinct was to ignore it. Why would I want to hear anything about the person who ruined my life? But curiosity got the better of me. I called the number back. Sarah answered on the first ring, and her voice was thick with emotion. "Stephanie has cancer," she said. "Stage 4. The doctors said she only has a few weeks left." I did not know what to say. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction. Another part felt nothing at all. Sarah continued. "She asked to see you. She said she needs to tell you something important." I almost laughed. "Why should I go see someone who destroyed my life?" I asked. There was a long pause. "Please, Jimmy," Sarah said quietly. I think there is something we all need to hear." Something in her tone made me agree. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe it was the faint hope that after 3 years, I might finally get some kind of acknowledgement. I told her I would come. The drive from Seattle back to Portland felt surreal. I had not been back in 3 years. The highway looked the same, the trees, the mountains in the distance, but everything felt different. I gripped the steering wheel and tried to prepare myself for whatever was waiting. The hospital was cold and sterile, the kind of place that smells like disinfectant and sadness. Sarah met me in the lobby and led me to Stephanie's room. My parents were already there. When I walked in, my mom looked at me and then quickly looked away. My dad stood near the window, his jaw tight. No one said anything. Stephanie lay in the bed, barely recognizable. She had lost so much weight that her face looked skeletal. Tubes ran from her arms to machines that beeped softly. Her eyes were closed when I entered, but they fluttered open as I stepped closer. "Jimmy," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Thank you for coming." I stood near the door, keeping my distance. I did not say anything. I just waited. Stephanie took a shaky breath. I do not have much time left, she said. Before I go, I need to tell the truth. The room went silent. I lied, she said. I lied about everything that night. You did not do anything to me. I made it all up. The air seemed to leave the room all at once. My dad turned from the window. What he said, his voice barely audible. Stephanie started crying, tears rolling down her hollow cheeks. After you rejected me, I felt so humiliated, she said. So small. That night when I woke up alone on the couch, I wanted you to feel something. I wanted you to have to acknowledge me. So I lied. I thought maybe if I said that, you would have to apologize and we could somehow move forward. She paused, struggling to breathe. I did not think everyone would believe me so easily. I did not think it would go this far. But once I said it, I could not take it back. I was too afraid, too ashamed. I watched you lose everything and I did nothing. I stood there, my hands shaking. 3 years. 3 years of my life destroyed because of a lie told by someone who felt rejected. Stephanie looked at me, her eyes pleading. I am sorry, Jimmy. I am so sorry. I cannot go without telling the truth. My mother covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Sarah sank into a chair, looking like she might be sick. My dad stared at Stephanie, then at me, his face crumbling with the weight of what he had just heard. My mom rushed over and threw her arms around me. Oh my God, Jimmy. What have we done? My dad followed, his voice breaking. Son, I do not even know what to say. Sarah was crying too, but she did not come near me. She stayed in her chair, staring at the floor. I finally spoke, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. You all should have believed me. I am your son. I am your brother. For 3 years, I lived like a ghost. No family, no friends, no life. And all it took was one person lying, and you all turned your backs on me. My dad stepped forward. We failed you, he said. We failed you as a father, as a family. My mom was sobbing. Please let us make this right. I looked at Stephanie one last time. Her eyes were closed, her breathing labored. I need time, I said. I cannot just forgive and forget right now. But at least now I have my truth back. That is all I wanted. I walked out of that hospital room and into the sunlight. Marcus was waiting in the parking lot. He had driven down as soon as I told him what was happening. How do you feel? He asked. Like I can finally breathe again, I said. Stephanie died 2 weeks after that meeting. I did not go to the funeral. I did not feel anger toward her anymore, just a hollow sadness for the waste of it all. She had destroyed both our lives over a moment of wounded pride, and now she was gone, leaving the rest of us to pick up the pieces. Reconnecting with my family was not easy. Those first few months were awkward and painful. My parents called every week trying to rebuild what had been broken. Sarah wrote me a long letter explaining how deeply she regretted not believing me, how she had let fear and shock cloud her judgment. I read it 3 times before I could bring myself to respond. The anger I felt was not something I could just switch off, but slowly I started to let them back in. The first family dinner after everything happened was 3 months later. My mom cooked my favorite meal from childhood, pot roast with roasted carrots and mashed potatoes. We sat around the same table where I had eaten 1,000 meals growing up, but everything felt different. My dad apologized again. I know I cannot undo what happened, he said, but I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I believe in you. It was not a perfect evening. There were long silences and moments of discomfort, but it was a start. I moved back to Portland 6 months after the truth came out. Marcus helped me find a job at a software company run by a friend of his. This time I came back with the support of my family and the knowledge that I had survived the worst thing I could imagine. My life started to feel like my own again. I got a new apartment, reconnected with a few old friends, and slowly built a routine that felt normal. The experience taught me things I wish I never had to learn. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. I learned that a single accusation can unravel a life. But the truth, no matter how long it takes, will eventually come to light. I learned that family should be the first to stand by you, not the first to walk away. And I learned that surviving something like this changes you. It makes you harder in some ways, but also more grateful for the small things. I do not hate Stephanie anymore. She died with the weight of what she did, and that is punishment enough. Forgiveness does not mean I have forgotten the pain, but holding on to the anger was only hurting me. I had to let it go to move forward. As for my family, we are still rebuilding. The relationship is not what it used to be. It is different now, shaped by what we went through. But in some ways, it is stronger. We learned the hard way that belief and trust are not things you give away lightly. They have to be earned and protected. The hardest lesson was about myself. I learned that I am stronger than I ever thought possible. I survived 3 years of isolation, judgment, and loss. I lived through having my name dragged through the mud and came out the other side still standing. That is not something I would have chosen, but it is something I carry with me now. A quiet strength that no one can take away. A year has passed since Stephanie's confession. I am sitting in a coffee shop in Portland, the same one I used to come to before everything happened. Sarah is across from me and we are laughing about something ridiculous that happened at her work. It feels almost normal. Almost. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been if she had never lied. But then I realize that version of me would never know how strong I really am. If you are going through something where no one believes you, hold on to your truth. It might take days, months, or even years. But the truth has a way of coming out. And when it does, you will realize that surviving the lie made you stronger than you ever thought possible. As for me, I am still here, still standing. And that is more than enough. I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where no one believed you? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss future stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, the truth always finds a way. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.